Welcome back to Singles Exchange, a podcast that focuses on conversations, connections, and community. As always, I'm your host, Joy J, and I'm excited to talk to you guys today. Before we get started, I want to remind you to like Singles Exchange on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and all of your podcast streaming platforms. So if you have an iPhone, you can follow Singles Exchange on Apple Podcasts. If you have an Android, you can follow on Google Podcasts or whatever your preference is. Some people use Spotify, some people use Anchor. Whatever your preference, be sure to follow and stay connected. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. No long intro today. Last podcast episode, we talked about how our relationship goals were a lie and how the media portrays things to be a certain way when it's actually not that way. So this time we're going to switch gears a little bit and just kind of talk about the recent events that have been happening in America. For those of you that don't know, I am a resident of Illinois. I have lived in Illinois my entire life. And so, of course, I live in the United States. And I just want to talk about the pandemic. I kind of addressed it in a couple of other episodes, but today I want to specifically talk about the whole quarantine, how I coped with it, how I coped with the pandemic as a whole, and just surviving this as a single, because we are a very unique group of people. And being a single in a time like this can be really frustrating. So I just kind of want to give you guys a rundown of what my year looked like so far. Today is August 2nd, I believe. Well, today, the date I'm recording is August 2nd. And I just kind of want to give you a rundown of what the first 8 months of the year looked like for me and how I coped with some things, how I struggled through some things, and just want to be transparent. So I hope you enjoy. If you think that this is a topic that another friend or a family member or a coworker or even your boo, if you think this is something that they can relate to, feel free to share it with them. So just going to be a little transparent and tell y'all about my year. So, if you don't know me, I am a church girl, born and raised, always been that way. And I started the new year in church. A lot of people go to watch night service. So I started the new year in church, as I always do. And we were declaring that this is the year of clear vision. We're gonna see God clearly. We're gonna focus. We're gonna do this and we're gonna do that because it's 2020. And so I was very excited for this year. I knew that this year would bring about some things for Singles Exchange, for me in my personal life. And I was just excited about what would come. Of course, we don't know everything that's going to happen this year, but I had some good plans. So we started the year all excited. And, me being a woman, I started the year as I always do. We make vision boards and we sit down and we map out our goals for the year. And we talk about the weight that we want to lose and the career moves that we want to make and the friend choices that we want to make. And, all of these things. We always do that for the most part. I know there are so many people who make vision boards and there's nothing wrong with it because, like I said, I do it every year. And I had all these big plans on my vision board that were you're going to step out on faith this year. You're going to move beyond your comfort zone this year. You're going to get healthy and get fit this year. You're going to travel more because I got my passport last year. And I had all of these big plans, right? So January was going smooth. Again, if you don't know, I am an elementary school secretary. So the first couple of days I was off. We went back to work. The kids came back. It was fine. And then January 26th came about and Kobe Bryant died tragically. And for the Black community, for people who love sports, it was a heavy hit. Now, I will admit that I am not a sports person. I know who he is, and my dad is a sports fanatic. I have tons of friends that are sports fanatics, but I am not. However, watching my dad grieve this man and watching my uncles and my friends and my cousins and my brothers grieve this man as if he were a part of our family. It really touched me. And I know that we all have celebrities that we look to as family or like we knew them. And I know that Kobe Bryant's death was a hard one for a lot of us. It came by surprise. It was very sudden. And it was so tragic because it didn't just include him. It included his daughter and her teammates. And, it was just a really sad thing. So that was a Sunday. I won't forget it. I was at one of my very close friends' house and I saw somebody post about it and I was like, this can't be right, So we found out that it was true and it was tragic. It definitely struck a lot of people in a really bad way. And this was just, less than a year, I think, after Nipsey Hussle's death, which was another tragic death for the Black community. So dealing with all of that and watching these people grieve, it was tough for me. When you love people, you don't want to see them sad and struggling anyway. And when there's really nothing you can do about it, it's just not a good feeling. So that was the 26th of January. The very next day, the 27th, I got a message from one of my favorite singles groups called Bliss for Christian Singles. Shout out to Tatiana. And she said that I would be featured on a new series that they had called Single Goals 2020. So I was so excited about that. I shared it with all of my friends, all of my family. It was all over Facebook, on my page, on the Singles Exchange page. And I was just very happy. I was also on a couple of panel discussions. Shout out to Mariah and Girl Code. I was just out here doing the dang thing. I was very excited that, these doors were open, and it never was something. If you know me from like early childhood, I was very quiet. I was not a talker. I know y'all don't believe that now, but I was very reserved, very quiet. So to have public speaking engagements and things like that, even with the podcast, because I knew that eventually I wanted to do a podcast, but I was kind of putting it off. Like, I'll get to it in the next 6 months or so. There was not a rush because I'm not a public speaker. Like, I like quiet time. So I was very excited that God was opening these doors and making me comfortable with it, because if you're not where you're supposed to be, you'll get up there and flop and be looking crazy. So I'm just grateful that God was keeping me, because there was no way that I could get up and do these things without him. But I'm going to come back to God later, because he's the center of my life. If he's not the center of yours, that's your business. But he'll definitely come up in this podcast later. So that was the end of January. February was when coronavirus started to get real. At first people were saying, well, Black people can't get this disease. We were kind of joking and laughing about it. And we were saying that that's another nation's problem. And then it started to infiltrate our own country. And it was like, okay, wait a minute. It's getting a little serious. So there were rumors going around that we would be shut down, the schools would be shut down. And I was definitely one of those people that was like, it's just like the flu, You wash your hands, you do this, you do that, and it's not a big deal. Like, that was my mindset in February. I thought it was a big deal because you don't want anybody to be sick, but also I was like, come on, it's like 5 people done died, y'all tripping. So March rolled around, and we get a message from my job saying that the governor has decided to shut down all of the schools in Illinois for 2 weeks. So I was like, okay, 2 weeks is not the worst. We'll let this thing pass. We get an extra 2 weeks off. We still get paid. I'm excited. Let's do this. So a couple of days before the school shut down, March 14th, I went to see a friend of mine in the hospital, which I'm surprised that the hospital were even still letting people in. But March 14th, me and another friend went to see my friend Brent, who had been in the hospital for over a month at that point. And, just to uplift him, to spend some time with him, to check on him. not knowing that would be the last time that I ever saw him. And I'll get to that a little later. But so March 14th, we went to see Brent. March 16th was the last day of school before the shutdown. So the shutdown officially began for schools in Illinois March 17th. We were set to reopen March 31st. Maybe 5 or 6 days before that, they decided that they would extend it another 2 weeks, which at this point we're going towards spring break. So I was like, okay, an extra 2 weeks is not the worst. I'll stay busy. I can deep clean my house, and I can reorganize, and I can do my spring cleaning early. I can throw some clothes away. I don't know if anybody else experienced that, but that was my thing. The first couple of weeks of quarantine, I was like, I'm going to be super productive. I'm going to get some rest. And of course, with school shutting down, churches were shut down too. So I literally had nothing to do. I would get up every morning. My pastor would do this, 10 or so minute video called Grace for This Space, which is where you see my shirt. If for those of you who are viewing this, search the hashtag Grace for This Space. They are some very inspirational messages just to get your day jump started and to remind you that God has kept you this far. So I would get up, I would watch my Grace for This Space video, and I would do some cleaning. And one of my friends just so happened to be staying with me during quarantine because she was in the process of moving back to our state. So, I would hang out with her before she went wherever she was going with her fiance. And, it was great. I was like living a life, like pre-spring break, having fun. So, then we found out that school would be canceled for the whole year. And I was like, what does this mean for me? Like, I'm a school secretary, so it's not like I'm getting online teaching. I have no interaction with the kids who I miss so much. Am I still gonna have a job? Because I'm really not doing any work. So then that started to play in the back of my mind, and I started to get worried. And then my friend passed away. So, I told you guys that March 14th, I went to see him. April, he came home, and he was home for a few days, and then he passed away. And so it was like, now I don't know if I have a job. My friends passed away, and we can't really have a funeral or say our last goodbyes. Like, I don't even really know how to mourn this. At this point, it had been several months since I see my family. For those of you that don't know, my family lives in Chicago, and I live about 4 hours south of them. So at this point, other than the friend that was staying with me, I was virtually getting to interact with, I was getting to interact with people virtually, but not physically. So I was not seeing my family. I was not going to church because we couldn't go to church. I couldn't see my teenagers because I'm a youth leader. I couldn't see my students at work because work was closed. Like, it was just this never ending pile up of stuff. And I tried, for those of you that know me, I really tried to stay positive and stay upbeat and uplifting and encouraging. Like, I try to be that person. So going through that, I was like, okay, I'm not going to get down. I'm not going to get depressed. I'm going to try to make the best of this situation. And there were days when that would be great for me, where I could wake up and I would, start the day off right with my, happy messages and my nice videos and my worship songs. And there were some days where I was like, this is awful. I don't like this. I'm bored. I'm ready to go back to work. I'm ready to go back to church. I'm ready for life to get back to normal. I'm not a very patient person. So At this point, we're, end of April, beginning of May. And I'm like, okay, now you said 2 weeks and it's been 2 months. What are we doing? So, I started to be sad. And then, some people had a quarantine bay. I was not that fortunate. I did not have a quarantine bay. So, at least some people had a little bay interaction. I was just out here floating, hoping for the best. In May, things started to look up a little. I did decide to go to Chicago and see my parents. For my own mental capacity as well as theirs. I knew I just couldn't keep putting it off. I had to see my parents physically, and I know they needed to see me to know that I was okay. So I got to Chicago. I surprised my mom. My dad knew, but I surprised my mom for Mother's Day, and I spent pretty much a week up there, and it was great. I really enjoyed getting away from my house because, like I said, I have a friend that's staying with me, but most of the time she's out with her fiance, and it's just me and these four walls in this apartment. So to get away and experience something that was like normal did me so much good. But then the end of May hit and the George Floyd murder happened, and all of the anxiety that I had been pushing back just came like bubbling over. And it was bad. Like, it was really bad. So, George Floyd got murdered and the video started to circulate on social media. I refuse to watch videos like that. It makes me sick to my stomach. I literally would have nightmares about it if I watched it. So I stopped watching those type of videos a long time ago. But to see the constant visual, the pictures, the snapshots, and just seeing all of the hurt and the anguish of yet another Black man being killed publicly, it kind of sent me past what I was trying to push back. So my anxiety shot through the roof really quick. And there was one Sunday in particular, which it was like that first week where it was like a lot of civil unrest, and there was a lot of rioting and looting and protesting. Like, there were so many things happening, some that I agree with, some that I don't. But all of these things were happening at once. There were riots and looting and peaceful protests where the protesters are being taunted. And I'm seeing people that I work with, people that I know, people that I love, say and express things that are not okay. Like, I know some people that were flat out saying rude and hurtful things and being so insensitive on the topic. And it was just more than I could handle. So I had decided to take a couple days off of social media, which is hard for me because this platform is on social media and I love Singles Exchange. But I had decided to take a few days off. And that Sunday was the day that I decided to get back on. And I just saw devastation. People were taking pictures of the neighborhoods that I grew up in, and there was nothing, so many places and stores and businesses were destroyed. And my mom, she kept calling me saying, now this is happening down the street and now that's happening. And, somebody literally just opened fire in front of their house. And I was like, this is too much. I can't take it. My anxiety levels were like sky high. And I just broke down. Like, I felt defenseless. I felt helpless. I felt like I wanted to go get my parents and like bring them back here. And there was nothing I could do. And I think that all of that just hit the wall for me. And so I had this big meltdown. I told one of my friends who I talked to on the regular, we would always send different articles and stuff back and forth. And I was like, hey, listen, I'm not trying to be petty or rude, but I cannot take in any more right now. And so that's where I was. Um, and I didn't really know how to handle that. So I took a step back, and it was even more crazy because all of the social injustice and social unrest, it happened right at a time where we were supposed to be launching a podcast. The podcast was set to launch June 2nd. Well, it was actually set to launch June 4th. But when I recorded the very first podcast, I recorded the entire thing and then I said the wrong day and date. So Tuesdays were born. Tuesday podcasts were born. Nonetheless, the podcast was literally set to launch the first week of June. And I felt so drained and so heavy. I was like, this is supposed to be a celebratory thing. I should be excited. And I don't want to do any of that. So I kind of regrouped and I recorded a video very similar to this one where I just talked about what I had been feeling with the George Floyd situation. And that was the very first podcast, official podcast episode that went up. But the ways that I coped with surviving and with getting through all of that, I was honest. Like I said, I was very honest with my friends and those that I trusted that I knew could handle what I was feeling on the days where I did not feel like pushing. I didn't. I allowed myself time to feel what I felt. I allowed myself time to cry, to grieve, but I didn't stay there. So I got it all out. I felt that in that moment. And then I got past it. I didn't. I allowed myself to feel, but I did not allow myself to go too deep into it. So that helped me a lot. One thing that I would encourage you to do as a single is to be honest with the people around you. Find at least one person that you trust to be able to say, I'm not feeling my best today, or I feel heavy today, or, I don't really want to talk today. So at least they'll know to pray for you and check on you tomorrow. Because sometimes that's all it takes. One of my best friends, when she gets into her place, she don't want to talk about it. And that's okay. She doesn't have to talk about it. But just so that we know to be checking on her. And, that's what you should do. So that's one way that I coped with it. Another way that I coped is to take breaks when I needed to. When I was not feeling my best, when I woke up feeling anxious and feeling heavy before the day even began, I did not get on social media, which is hard because I like social media. But I did not succumb to social media on days when I knew that it would be extremely heavy and when I felt like I could not handle it. So that's another thing that you have to be honest with yourself about. Am I at a place where I can mentally handle what I'm going to experience today on social media? Because if I'm not, I'm going to just stay off for today. And that's okay. Another thing that I did to cope was I found other things to do. Like I said, I was cleaning and, reorganizing, throwing stuff away. I tried to exercise a couple of times. Y'all know that didn't necessarily go well, but I did try to exercise. Cooking different meals, trying to find new things to cook. Makeup. I like makeup, so every once in a while I would pull out all my makeup and just play around in makeup for a while. Because I'm a content creator, I did spend a lot of time planning for singles exchange. And it was therapeutic for me. I enjoy planning content for singles exchange. So finding videos and podcasts and researching new things to present to you guys was fun for me. So if you're a content creator, when you have a lot of downtime and you don't want to get sucked into all of the negative stuff, push yourself to do some content. Um, Even new TV shows. If you know me really well, you know that I have started to binge watch Married at First Sight. Okay, I love it, and that wasn't the only show. There were a few others. That's just the most recent, but I found some shows that I could really get into, and that carried me through a lot on the days when I could not do the social media. Um, I found other things to do. I played The Sims. I played The Sims so much in quarantine that I got one of my friends playing it too. But playing The Sims was great for me. It gave me something to do. It kept my mind going. It kept my hands busy. Like, it was great. The biggest thing that I did, well, the second biggest thing that I did was I did so many virtual hangouts. I mean, I had like makeup days with my friends online. We would hang out on House Party, which is an app, and like play games and stuff. I had weekly meetings on Zoom with my brothers and my sister-in-laws and my parents. And we would just have fun. We would just talk. There was no like set schedule. We would get on there. Time was not an issue because nobody had to work, nobody had church. So we would get on there and just talk. There were some days where the conversation was very funny and lighthearted, and there were some very serious conversations. But I appreciated all of them. And the most important thing that I did was I took some time to intentionally reconnect with God. If you do not believe in a higher power, it is my hope that you find a higher power that works for you. Reconnecting with God, spending time in prayer, listening to worship songs, watching sermons, even watching church online. It's definitely not ideal. It's not what I would have hoped for, but it got me through. It kept me through the end. So now, like I said, today is August the 2nd. I've been back at work for a little over a week. No, the kids will not be in the building, but it gives me a sense of normalcy that I did not have in the last few months. So even if we should go back into some type of shutdown or some type of quarantine, I feel better. I feel rejuvenated, and I feel more ready to take on whatever's next. So that's it. We're at the 28-minute mark. I really hope that you enjoyed this podcast episode. It's a little different from my normal layout, but I just kind of wanted to be real about my journey. And I'm sure that people have experienced very similar things. If you are a person who has experienced tremendous loss during this experience, I am so sorry. I wish that it was different, but I'm happy that you are still here to share your experience. I can truly say that I've been kept. And that is not an easy feat, but God has kept me, and I am grateful. And I am grateful that God kept you too. Even if some of us have lost loved ones, some people have lost jobs, and at the end of the day, we're still here. And that's something to celebrate. So I hope you enjoyed. Be on the lookout for all of the posts and the conversations that will come out of this. Also, the next podcast episode, I'm going to give you a little spoiler. The next episode is titled Texas from My Exes. So you don't want to miss that. Be on the lookout for it. And I will talk to you all soon. Let's exchange.